1968, Porsche, fairly flirting with success in championships of makes racing with their 3-liter 8-cylinder 908, was narrowly defeated by Ford for that glory by the thinnest of margins, a scant 3 points. For the 1969 season, the FIA required 25 models of a car had to be constructed in order for it to be eligible for competition in the Group 4 division. For Porsche, the decision was easy. They constructed a 908 and a half. Project 917, a no-compromise effort, was begun. It borrowed power plant and chassis technology from the 908, which was a proven combination, and transformed the engine into a 12-cylinder, 4.5-liter Tiger. The first 25 cars constructed were built in a Langheck or long-tail configuration, such as this example. An easy conversion, however, quickly transformed the aerodynamics into a Kurtz body or short body style, more efficient on the shorter European courses. The first completed 917 Longtail appeared at the Geneva show in March of 1969, and a month later the first 25 cars were complete, ready for FIA inspection. This official factory photograph shows the first 25 in a neat row. At the Le Mans time trials in 1969, a 917 had little trouble in setting fast time, averaging 143 miles per hour with Rolf Stommelen at the wheel. With 520 horsepower, the 917 exceeded the 908's output by over 100 horsepower. Its first actual race was the 1,000 kilometers of Spa, where it managed but a single lap before coming in with valve spring failure. Porsche, however, took 3 of the first 4 spots in that event with 908s, winning first, third, and fourth. A Ferrari 312P was second. This particular example, number 917044, is actually a 1970 version of the Longtail Coupe, very similar generally to its 1969 predecessors. Subtle changes distinguished 1970 917s, such as the elimination of the rear plexiglass window, which was removed when aerodynamic tests proved it to be useless. Number 917044 is also shown here without its rear elevator system in place. Porsche's goal with the 917 was to, quite simply, win Le Mans. The 907 and 908 had finished second and third in 1968, so 1969 seemed to be their year to take the coveted checkered flag first. But with very little developmental time behind it, it seemed unlikely that the sleek coupe would finish a 24-hour race. The 917 was constructed much the same as its predecessors, with a fiberglass body cemented over a tubular space frame. It carried 4 ignition systems, and the battery was stored behind the required passenger seat. The driver's seat shell, each formed for a specific driver, was easily removable. Although comfortable at speed, anyone over 6 feet tall found it cramped in the cockpit. Ignition switches, light and wiper controls were located on the left side. A plastic tray protected the driver's feet and legs from accelerator and clutch cables. Fresh air was ducted directly onto the driver from the front of the car. The 917 bore the typical Porsche right-hand driving and shifting configuration. A 4- or 5-speed transmission drove the rear wheels through a triple-plate clutch. The prototypo steering wheel assembly was somewhat adjustable. The instrument cluster included a chronometric tachometer with telltale rev marker, oil pressure and temperature gauges, and large warning lights for the alternator, oil pressure, brake pad wear, and the cooling fan. Electrical components and fuses were very accessible so they could be easily changed under racing conditions. The sliding rear window increased airflow through the cockpit. '69 was a learning year for both Porsche and its 917. The car experienced high-speed stability and brake problems. The long tail was ideal for high-speed racing, but did little to assist in sticking the rear of the racer to the ground when attaining speeds of up to 200 miles per hour on Le Mans' Mulsanne Straight. None of the drivers felt really comfortable with the car's performance. Porsche entered two 917s for the 1969 Le Mans event, while a third privately entered car was driven by John Wolfe. The 917 weighed in at 1,765 pounds, with its aluminum frame accounting for only 104 pounds of that total. It stood just under 36 inches high. A heavily finned case, titanium half shafts, and rubber donuts to dampen vibration were featured on the 1970 version of the transaxle. The 4.5-liter engine weighed 528 pounds and expelled 520 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. The Flat 12 utilized a Bosch mechanical injection system, dual ignition, and dual overhead camshafts on either side. The camshafts and horizontal cooling fan were center-driven through gears. At Le Mans in 1969, 917s qualified first and second, with Stommel and Ahrens and Elford Atwood. They qualified at approximately 145 miles per hour, a new course record. The best the 917 could do in the race, however, was 21 hours. But a 908 driven by LaRousse and Herman finished 1 second behind the GT40 of Jackie Eakes, making the closest Le Mans finish ever. Porsche was learning, but it would be yet another year for the 917. Handling problems were controlled now, but mechanical woes still plagued the team. The 917's first victory came at the Ostrich Ring, with its developed reliability outlasting the Mirage Fords. Spider versions of the 1969 917 competed in Can-Am racing in the United States and finished fourth overall in that series, with Joe Siffert doing most of the driving. The 1970s were to see a rapid advancement in 917 action, as John Wyer's JW Automotive Engineering Enterprises was tapped to take over the 917 racing effort. Porsche had relinquished factory control over the racer and had for several months supported only privately owned 917s. Wyer's highly successful GT40 program under Gulf Oil sponsorship convinced Porsche he was the man to coordinate the 917 effort. Over the winter of 1969-70, a new version of the 917 evolved under Wyer's tutelage. It was dubbed the 917K. The rear section of the 917K was completely redesigned by Wyer and his cars boasted subtle differences from other customer-driven 917s, including a small adjustable wing at the rear center of the automobile. Remember, the first 25 917s began life in a long-tail configuration, as did this example, number 917004, running at Nürburgring with Piper and Gardner as drivers. After taking on the Gulf colors in 1970, it was driven as number 9 by Siffert Redman. Later, as number 25 with a 4.9-liter engine by Rodriguez and Kinnunen. In that configuration, it set a record lap at Spa-Francorchamps, 160 miles per hour. Then, as number 20 at Le Mans, with Siffert Redman driving once again, where it led for 10 hours before retiring. Look for number 20 in action in just a few minutes as it portrayed itself in the racing motion picture classic Le Mans. The upward sloping tail and a change to 17-inch wide wheels and tires erased the 917's high-speed stability problems once and for all. For Le Mans, the center wing was set at 11 degrees to the horizontal, with the spoilers on either side set at 16 degrees to the horizontal. The change to wider wheels necessitated a slight bulging of the rear fender line to accommodate them. The flaring on this example has been slightly altered from original specifications, however. For 1970, the 917s were to run in the Group 5 category, head-to-head with Ferrari's new 512S. In the first confrontation of the year at Daytona, Mario Andretti qualified his Ferrari fastest, but was beaten in the race by the more reliable 917. Trays on either side of the rear body section served as the FIA-required luggage compartment. Missing on this car is the also required spare tire, which was secured behind the transmission. The second race of the 1970 season at Sebring was to be a different story, with 2 cars entered by wire and 2 by an Austrian team. Andretti came home the winner in this outing, beating the 908 of Peter Revson and Steve McQueen by over 1/2 mile. The best 917 finish was 4th by the Siffert Redman car. By the Monza race, most of the 917s had converted to the 4.9-liter engine. For Le Mans, the Gulf cars ran Firestone racing tires on 10.5-inch front rims and 17-inch rear rims at 25 and 27 psi, respectively. For wet conditions, the rear rims were reduced to 15 inches. The Gulf 917s were also unique in the fact that they only carried one fuel cell on the right side, containing 26.5 imperial gallons of fuel. As Le Mans approached, Porsche had already wrapped up the championship of makes for that year, with Elford and Aaron's 908 taking the title. Porsche wanted the Le Mans victory badly, having waited so many years to do so. The 917s were now reliable, and many fingers were crossed in hopes that racing luck would look favorably in their direction. Wire entered 3 cars at Le Mans. The Porsche factory also supported 3 additional cars from Austria and assisted another team, Martini, with a 4.5-liter version for LaRousse and Causen. The Gulf 917K was about 9 inches shorter than its long-tailed sister. It's difficult to understand why the factory bothered at all with the long-tail version, as the performance of the 2 configurations was so similar. Here are the 2 low-pressure fuel supply pumps that keep the surge tank full. The 917's brake assembly utilized titanium hubs and cross-drilled discs, the latter markedly improving braking response. Girling brakes were utilized at all 4 corners, with Techstar pads 3/4 of an inch thick in front which lengthened pad life in long-distance races. Bilstein shocks were fitted all around, enclosed by titanium coil springs. (917-004) was a sister car to 917-016, the most raced 917 ever. With 4 wins in 1970, it portrayed car number 21 in the Le Mans film. Note the squared-off front fender line of number 917-016 contrasting to the rounded fender line of other customer 917s. Settle back now and join Steve McQueen as he shows us the 917 as it's never been shown before, in excerpts from his famous motion picture, Le Mans. McQueen portrays the real heroes of the 917 effort, men like Pedro Rodriguez, Joe Siffert, Vic Elford, and others including Hans Hermann, Ryan Redmond, Jackie Oliver, Derek Bell, David Piper, and Leo Kaneunen. Veteran British character actor Ronald Lee Hunt portrayed Gulf team manager John Wyer. The 917Ks were reaching up to 211 miles per hour on the long Mulsanne Strait. In 1971, long-tail Porsches were approaching 240 miles per hour. The actual race winners were Herman and Atwood in one of the Salzburg, Austria 917Ks. Second place was taken by LaRousse and Cowson in a 917 longtail. 917s continued their winning ways in 1971 on the international racing circuit. A 3-liter engine limit imposed by FIA regulations in 1972 dethroned the 917's dominance in international racing. Porsche was equally successful with the Spider versions of the 917. Leo Kanunen took the 1971 German Inter Series Championship in a 917. These cars continued their dominance in 1972, both in the Inter Series and in the United States Can-Am Series, with George Follmer taking top points in the Can-Am with a 917 10K, a turbocharged Spider. Number 917-10016 was the 1972 version of the Inter Series car, featuring a shovel nose, a large swooping tail, and a horizontal stabilizing wing. A normally aspirated version boasting no turbocharger. The 5.4-liter engine in this car produces over 600 horsepower. 12-inch wide magnesium wheels in front and 19-inch wide wheels in the rear added up to superb sticking power. This engine was the largest 917 power plant ever built. A 16-cylinder version was developed but never used, as the Ferrari Challenge with their 512Ms never materialized. The weight of the Spider with its 660 horsepower motor was about 1,650 pounds, nearly 100 pounds lighter than their sister coupes. And the Spider was some 30 inches shorter than the Group 4 long-tail coupes. The Inter-Series cars were very successful, with Ville Kausen and Leo Kanunen swapping victories in many of the 1972 races. Halfway through the season, the factory was to furnish them with 5-liter turbocharged engines that were charted at over 900 horsepower and featured 600 foot-pounds of torque. We caught veteran Porsche pilot George Follmer in the 917-10 at a 1983 vintage race.
George, you're sitting in a 917-10 with a normally aspirated engine. Can you maybe explain some of the differences in driving this car over that of the 917-10 with the turbo in it, which I think you're more familiar with?
Well, of course, I've really never raced this particular car with normally aspirated 917 engine, but we felt that this particular race at Laguna, the 10K with the turbos is a little more of a handful, as well as taking more effort to run. There's more maintenance and things to do to it. And in these vintage races, we have cases where you have a lot of variance in speed and there's a lot of traffic, and the normally aspirated car is a little easier to get around, and actually we think will be faster than the 10 in this particular race. If we were running someplace like Riverside or some high-speed track or where horsepower was very, very important, obviously the 10 would be faster, and it would probably be faster here if we had an open track.
You're a Porsche Audi dealer here in Los Angeles area, which keeps you pretty involved with the cars. What other activities are you working on at the present time?
Well, of course, I'm a Porsche Audi dealer, and we devote a lot of time to my business, but I'm also a racer, I guess, at first time, so I try to involve myself, and at this present time we're developing a 1984 Trans Am Racing Corvette, and I'm looking forward to getting that out there and competing with that next year, and maybe a little bit in 83 too.
You hope to see it on the track in 83?
Yeah, actually I think we'll have it out for the last few races of the 83 season, basically in preparation to develop the car for the 84 season, and we're very optimistic the car will be good, and we're anxious to try that one.
If we were allowed to put you out here on the racetrack for an afternoon with any Porsche that you could think of, what would be the car you'd like to spend some time in on the track just for fun?
Well, it really is a tough question, because there's so many fine cars and there's so many beautiful Porsches here. You know, it would be difficult to really pick one that you wanted. I really enjoy running these old Spiders, the RSK and RS60. I've had several opportunities the last couple of years to run those cars here, and they really are a lot of fun, and it was one of my first real race cars, so I guess I have a soft spot for those. But after racing the 917-10 as much as I have, and having as much success as I had with the car, I guess I'd have to fall back into it, because it's like kind of putting on a slipper. It just feels real good.
Well, there's no substitute for horsepower, is that right?
Well, I like horsepower, and that 917-10 with the turbo is it's a real challenge to drive. It's the power comes on, and you can use the power, and it's kind of fun.
Usually it is home track up at
Vintage racing is becoming more and more popular in the United States and abroad. It creates an exciting reenactment of past years. It reintroduces yesterday's heroes, like Jackie Stewart driving his championship Tyrrell Ford. Here's a Le Mans winning Ford GT40, a 1950s vintage HWM, and hundreds of cars from many races ago. In this vintage race at Laguna Seca in Northern California, let's watch George Follmer do what he did best when he was an active driver 10 years ago. In this race, pitted against the likes of McLaren, Lola, Ferrari, and other Porsches, he takes to the lead and stays there.
This one a McLaren Ford, one of the few Ford-powered McLarens that were run. Car number 31, Wes McNay of Menlo Park, California, in a 69 McLaren Mark 12. Car number 43 is James McQueen of Costa Mesa, California, in a 66 McLaren Mark 3. Porsche, followed by one of the McLarens. I couldn't see whether that was the number 3 or number 5 McLaren. I think it might be the number 3 McLaren. 0-0. The lead as they come to you.
They're on me right now. Ian Morton. He is flat flying. Right behind him, the number 5 is McLaren. Number 5 McLaren is great. The driver changes
across the start-finish line, and it is a pretty good distance back to the second place automobile, car number 3, which is Bill Margraf. We have another third place car. It looks like I didn't catch the number on it. You'll have to pick that up as they get to you, Rick.
give a shot to Morton. Just
It's still a beautiful automobile. A little bit less power than the car that George Follmer won the championship with, but obviously just as good a handling car, just as competitive a car. Actually, it's still beautiful to see out
Out of the race, but not out of the hearts of the thousands who enjoy vintage racing events. Another checkered flag for Porsche. In 1972, a 917 10K, the turbocharged model, carried George Follmer to the Can-Am Championship. Follmer was a last-minute replacement for the injured Mark Donohue. The 1973 season saw a better 5.4-liter turbocharged engine. This car, number 917 10-018, was the car purchased by Vasek Polak to be driven by Jody Scheckter in the 1973 Can-Am series. Visible here, the blow-off valve. The Spiders, with a lighter chassis than the coupes and a fiberglass body that was fastened rather than bonded to the frame, not to mention twin turbochargers, produced an astonishing 1,100 horsepower at 7,800 RPM when running at a boost level of about 19 pounds per square inch. All this, plus 810 foot-pounds of torque, kept the 917 Pilot very busy indeed. This is one of 3 917 10Ks built in 1973, bringing the total 917 10 production to 14. The 917 10K was the complete race car, but there was yet another refinement to come, the 917 30. With Mark Donohue doing the development driving and the Porsche factory and Penske racing teams working together, the ultimate 917 was built. Donohue called it the perfect race car, and it performed very well indeed. It brought him the 1973 Can-Am Championship, which was to mark his retirement from motor racing. We will explore what is thought to be the last of 6 917-30 chassis, number 917-30-006. This car was designed to carry 105 gallons of fuel. The capacity was later reduced to 70 gallons. The aluminum-framed racer weighed in at 1,765 pounds, ready to race. The 5.4-liter engine with a relief valve on each intake manifold. Eberspacher turbochargers fed both sides of the engine. The sophisticated engine system was designed so that a bare minimum of turbo boost lag time was experienced. The suspension of the 917-30 differed little from that installed on the 917-10. Subtle refinements added to the 917-30's superior performance. Mark Donohue's closed-course speed record of 221 miles per hour at Talladega, Alabama, was the 917's last hurrah.